Hello and welcome to the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show. Today is a deep dives episode. I am your co-host Nick Agar Johnson, and with me, of course, as always, is my co-host Paige Otto. Paige, how are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing great. College basketball is officially over, Nick. We're in the
Yeah,
postseason now. We're in the last few months until the draft, combine, the draft. Obviously, the lottery too is close, so it doesn't stop here.
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like March Madness is the ramp up, and then this is our playoffs right now.
Yeah.
These 2 months, it's gonna be interesting. So, actually, speaking of which, and this embarrassingly enough is right before we started recording. I was like, "Is there anything else that we forgot to mention?" And I realized, oh yeah, this is what I forgot to mention. But we are going to be aiming a little closer to the top of the draft over the next few episodes than we had been previously. So, for those of you who checked out our recent second round mock draft, thank you all very much for that. But even though we've done second round picks pretty much all season, we're going to be moving slightly up. So we're not going to be talking about Darren Peterson and Cam Boozer every week, but some of our favorite sort of late first round, early second round guys. And the good news for today's episode is that, technically speaking, as of the most recent No Ceilings NBA mock draft, which came out Tuesday morning, so we're recording this Tuesday afternoon, technically speaking, both of the guys that we chose are actually not in the first round. Granted, they were two of the three first picks of the second round, but we're still in second round territory for now before we move a little bit up for the remaining episodes before we get to that road to the draft, although we're already very much on it. So that's a little bit of bookkeeping up top, but shall we go ahead and start with the first of our players for the day?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so Paige, for today, you decided to go with Duke guard Isaiah Evans, and again, just barely squeaked under the wire. He was the 31st pick in our most recent No Ceilings mock draft, so good to go there. But why did you decide to go with Isaiah Evans for today?
Yeah, I picked Isaiah Evans because I kind of love these players that improve year after year. And he needed what he needed to do in a sophomore campaign. He did it. He came from being a spark plug, off the bench guy, only started about 3 games last year, his freshman season, to being the second offensive option to, a nationally caliber team with the Duke Blue Devils, right? Obviously, they ended up losing to UConn, right? And didn't have that run that a lot of us expected them to have this year. But I mean, his improvements are all the way around, right? I mean, his assist rate is up, rebounding is up, rim finishing is up, free throw attempts is up. The assist numbers aren't as, better as I thought they would be this season, but there is still growth there, right? And just to go, through the numbers a little bit, he averaged 15 points per game, 3.2 rebounds, 1.3 assists on 43.3, 36.1, 86 shooting splits. I mean, he is your typical, sharp shooting flamethrower shooter, right? He's absurdly confident and, letting the rock fly. He has parking lot range. I mean, the way he is so monotonous in terms of getting his feet set, he's so balanced in every single shot. It seems like when he's coming off these pin downs, flares, curl actions, it's kind of like it's a mirror of himself every single time he shoots the ball. I mean, it's just so repetitive, possession after possession. Obviously, there is some defensive concerns too. I'm more concerned about his playmaking and his defense, but I put him in this role of, he's a guy you can start right away that can make an impact off the bench for you and has that starting quality too, as well. It just depends on on a recent mock draft. We had him 31 to the Knicks, which I think is a really great fit for him as well. But he's a guy that can come in, and because he has such a deep offensive bag with his shooting ability, obviously his shooting ability kind of came down a little bit through the season, right? Kind of at that 36% mark. Last year was about like 42%. But I'm not really worried about that at all, to be honest. I'm more concerned about, playmaking defense. And one thing that did surprise me this year is his rim finishing. I mean, he looks a lot more confident going to the rim. He's actually initiating contact and that's why he's getting to the line more too, right? I mean, he's getting to the line three times per game now, as opposed to about one last year. Obviously, he has more minutes and he has, more of a sanctioned role this year. But I mean, he wasn't doing it last year, right? I mean, he's 6'6", 180 pounds. He's, lightning in a bottle when it comes to, shooting the rock, right? But I mean, that was a big, progression for him this year.
I'm really glad that you started with his improvement across the board, because if you were to look at the absolute sort of 30,000 foot level oh, this guy's a shooter and his shooting percentage declined. It's like, well, first of all, there's literally everything else, right? But second of all, it's what you mentioned of he is even by the standards of insanely confident people who go on to be NBA players, there is nobody that can tell Isaiah Evans not to shoot the rock. And, it's one of those things where, again, if you look at the raw percentage, yeah, it went down a little bit. I mean, as you mentioned, the sort of small drop off that he had towards the end of the season did a number on that 3-point percentage in specific. But I mean, you mentioned it. He improved dramatically from 2-point range. He got somehow even better at the free throw line where he shot 81% as a freshman, right? So didn't have much room to grow and still grew quite a bit in that regard. But, the passing improvement not being as dramatic as you would have liked is, it's a fair point. It's a bit vaguely sort of on the borderline unfortunate. But again, what jumps out to me is like the shooting was what we knew he had last year, right? And for him to nearly, this is insane, he nearly doubled his 3-point volume from last season when he was already firing away all the time. He put up 280 3-pointers this year.
Insane.
It's like, it's not something you see very often, and it's something that you see very, very not often when you're playing alongside someone who, I guess he finished like third in the country in scoring in Cam Boozer, something like very near the top of the list, and he's still just bombing away. But it's also that, as you mentioned, he's not spacing the floor to 21 feet, right? He's spacing the floor to like 30 plus consistently. Yeah. And so if you just look at the raw percentage, okay, yeah, it's a dip. But when you factor in A, the improvement everywhere else, and B, the market increase in volume for someone who is already shooting quite a lot, again, he proved a lot of the things, exactly as you said, he proved a lot of the things that he hadn't necessarily proven last year, when last year was like, okay, this guy's clearly a sniper. Can he expand his game enough? And the answer this year has been a resounding yes.
And one thing too, he's also improved on is, just showing off his athleticism. I mean, I think he's a real athlete. And like last year, he only had, I think like 1 dunk in the half court. This year he had 13. And he just is more explosive, especially with the ball in his hands too. He just seems like he kind of grew up in a way of like, hey, like I'm in this key role and playing for, a national caliber team. Like this is my time to shine and improve on stuff like I wasn't showing last year because 1, he didn't have the playing time, 2, right? But he was very heavily relied on. And, he's so confident, right? I mean, that's not a question with his game on the offensive end. And he shows it too. I mean, people call him slim for a reason, right? And especially for, at the rim too, he's shooting 64% at the rim. And he kind of got into, hey, I can be this 3-level scorer, right? Doesn't matter if I'm like 180 pounds, right? 6'6", like I'm going to go to work because he's great with the ball in his hands. He's very twitchy and flashy. He has that wiry, lanky frame as well. And he's going to make you work for it, right? And on the defensive end of the side of the ball, I want you to go more into the offensive side too, Nick. But just off the top of my head, like when he was guarding Braylon Mullins, right, in March Madness, like he's kind of guarding like the same version of himself in a way. And it's kind of like, okay, this is how it feels to guard myself. Like, whoa. Like, I mean, he was getting caught on screens. He was, he could keep up, right? But I mean, he does have that long wingspan as well, plus wingspan that kind of, gets him out of those situations here and there. And he kind of relies on that a lot more. But I mean, that's kind of how I wanted him to kind of see how that felt like, because it is kind of hell in a way, because you're constantly having to move, get around screens, can't get caught ball watching. You kind of always have to have your, head on a swivel. And he did. But I mean, again, like, as you mentioned, like defense, you're not going to want him to be like a plus defensive player, right? I mean, you want him to not be a liability. And I think he's shown improvements in that area, that he's not as much of a liability as we initially thought, probably his freshman season. But I think that was a very good test for him, especially, coming into the combine, into the draft. And I don't know, I think that was a good test for him overall.
So going back to the offensive stuff, as you mentioned, I do want to circle back to one point you made about his athleticism, because he is genuinely sneaky athletic. And it's one of those things where if you look at the raw numbers, and this is something that I figured out for another reason, which maybe we'll get into later, but Duke was secretly a really bad transition team this last year. Like they were in the 34th percentile. They shot 50% in transition. That's not a number you see very often. And it's especially not a number you see very often for a team that was so demonstratively, I can speak English, demonstratively terrible in transition to also be as ridiculously prolific as they were in the half court. And, you know, that also shows up in Isaiah Evans' number, right? I mean, he was 33rd percentile in transition, but 92nd percentile in the half court. And again, it's one of those things where I actually first sort of realized how bad Duke was in transition because, spoiler alert, for the day that this podcast comes out, I will be writing a feature on Dame Sarr. And that was something that I just couldn't comprehend of how is this guy so bad in transition? It's like, no, actually, the Duke offense just doesn't get out and run, like, ever.
Yeah.
And so on the rare opportunities where you do see that happen, it's one of those things where, you know, it's not Cam Carr, right, of like 2 steps and he's, you know, got his head above the rim kind of deal. But it's also like that was not an environment that really did a good job to showcase players who play up tempo. And, you know, credit to Isaiah Evans and a whole lot of the rest of the Duke team for being as good as they were in the half court. But you don't get as many opportunities to show off the hops, to show off the wheels if the team's never running. And that was pretty much Duke's MO.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to, like with anything, right? If a system or a scheme isn't going to let you allow to like have those other aspects of your game show, you're going to have to kind of be you're going to have to set the nature of it, right? And that's exactly what, you know, Isaiah Evans and Dame Sarr did when they could, right? Because we do know that they are athletic. Obviously, Dame Sarr is, I think, a better athlete, obviously, than Isaiah Evans. But
I think that's fair.
Yeah, in the nicest way possible. Another deep dives guy, too. But yeah, I think with him too, especially, you know, going back to the at rim stuff and athleticism stuff. I mean, he had 100 rim attempts this year compared to about 24 rim attempts this year. And I think he just showed a lot more poise and control. And hey, I'm going to go right through you. I'm not going to let you go right through me and kind of knock me off my spot. And on the defensive end too, he's shown that yes, he gets caught in screens. Yes, he kind of gets called ball watching. And yes, he kind of has trouble, you know, being kind of a chaser to, you know, a mere version of himself. But he's shown that, hey, I can be a defensive playmaker, right? I can, you know, his stocks are up this year. He kind of showed that, hey, like I can do the little things that I wasn't doing last year. And just he's more capable in that sense, right? So I think there is an avenue where like, he's not going to be as much of a liability that we initially thought. But I mean, it's there, right? The effort is there. The athleticism is there too. So,
yeah. And it's something that we have talked about many times before, and I'm sure we will talk about many times again, of so much of the battle defensively is just effort. And it's also one of those things where, you know, sort of the first expectation for someone who's taking on a much bigger offensive workload is, okay, so they're going to take a step back defensively, right? That happens in pretty much all cases. And in Isaiah Evans's case, it actually didn't. I mean, yes, he's not much of a defensive playmaker, as you pointed out, but he doubled his steal percentage and more than quadrupled his block percentage, right? Yeah. And, you know, granted, that's because he blocked 3 shots all of last year. And this year he had, you know, about 2 blocks every 3 games, essentially, is what that boiled down to. And so, you know, okay, yeah, there are reasons to believe that, you know, he's not going to be the guy who's jumping passing lanes. He's not going to be your weak side shot blocker. But those numbers, those defensive playmaking numbers, are pretty much the most direct translations to NBA play of any stat you're going to see in college. Like, if you're a high steals guy in college, you're probably going to be a high steals guy in the NBA, right? So him showing improvement in that area is pretty important. I do want to sort of go back to one more offensive thing, which is just, you know, we mentioned sort of the profile that he got for himself last year as a sharpshooter, which obviously was very well deserved. But again, I mentioned earlier his 2-point percentage improvement. He went from 50% to 57% from 2-point range. And he did that while getting to the line a lot more, which, hey, when you shoot 86%, it's usually a pretty good idea to get yourself to the free throw line. And so the fact that he diversified his shot diet in the way that he did is extremely encouraging, even if technically he didn't have as many threes fall this year as last year. I mean, again, 36% on the diet of 3-point attempts that he was taking is actually pretty solid. And there's every reason to expect that, especially early on in his NBA career, he's going to be a lot more open, a lot more frequently than he was at any point in time this year when, vast majority of his catch and shoot jumpers were guarded because, hey, you don't leave Isaiah Evans alone beyond the 3-point line.
For sure. And he was shooting 42% off dribble twos as well. I mean, he was really making a point to, use his shot creation and creation ability to get to his spot a lot more than last year too. And, per synergy, when he did cut, he was very good at it, but it was only 13% of the time that he was, slashing and cutting because he's looking to get his shot off, right? Beyond the arc. Like he's not really trying to do that. And if he is going to the rim, it's mostly of, his own doing of creating his own lane and, taking it to the rack. Right. And just to go back really quickly to the defensive prowess of him, right? I mean, he went from 3 blocks to 25, 7 steals his freshman year to 27, and his defensive rebound percentage went from 7.9 to 10.7. So when the shot's not falling for him, he's actively attacking the glass and getting in there way more than he was last year, which is another positive sign that I wanted to see.
Yeah, and those rebounding numbers are with him playing alongside Cam Booster, right? It's not like, oh, they don't have any rebounders anymore, so yeah, there's this opportunity for me to go and attack the glass. They were I want to make sure I read this number correctly, but 13th in defensive rebounds this year. It's like this is not a team that was inept on the glass by any stretch of the imagination, and he still was able to contribute in that way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he improved all year round, right? And he showed us that he did what he had to do to, improve his draft stock, right? And he did that. So I can't wait for, the combine when he declares, right? And to see, where he ultimately ends up.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, again, we were talking about him last year. Is like, does he declare? Mm-hmm. He's probably done enough to get himself a first-round grade somewhere, and then he returned to school. It's like, okay, he probably didn't get the first-round promise he was hoping for. Yeah, it's funny because we were right in the middle of the absolute deluge of transfer portal news.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where you sort of read the end of the thing. It's like, do they say declaring for the draft and going into the portal or just declaring for the draft? Because when it's just declaring for the draft, it's like, yeah, I know we're going to go here.
Yeah, it's kind of like, the national championship ends, college basketball ends, and it's like, wait, the transfer portal starts right away. So, I mean, the madness keeps on going until June, basically.
Yeah. For being real, the transfer portal's already started, but,
yeah.
keep that zipped and under tight wraps.
For sure.
Shall we move on to player number 2?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so this should not be particularly a surprise to longtime listeners, but I finally picked Tounde Yessoufou for today. And again, if you've read my work this year, you know how Tounde genuinely has a special place in my heart. But in terms of his draft stock, this was a very odd year in a lot of ways. I mean, yes, he was basically one of the best steal merchants in college basketball, and comparing that to his high school film, a lot more of his defensive playmaking this year was of the, this is a mean way to say it, but like there's the Russell Westbrook steals of like, I'll gamble every single possession and 2 out of 10 times it's a steal and 8 out of 10 times it's an open dunk. Tounde did that a lot in high school. This year it was a lot more solid. It was a lot more jumping passing lanes. It was a lot more legitimately stripping guys. It was genuine improvement in that regard. You brought up the consistency with Isaiah Evans, and that was really the big thing for Tounde in the negative column. And, the log line is shot 29.3% from 3-point range. The little caveat that I want to add to that is before his final 3 games of the year, he was shooting 32%, and then he went 0 of 7, 0 of 4, 1 of 5 to close out the season. So not pretty, but that was sort of the deal all year long was, and again, I'm not a shot doctor. You're far better at this sort of thing than I am, but certainly looking at his high school film versus his college film, he clearly sped up his release. He clearly focused on getting it sort of more consistent, not quite like a one motion shot, but getting a sort of more consistent, smoother, faster release. And, it was one of those things where when it was working, it looked a lot better. And then, the last few games of the season when it wasn't working, it didn't look great. But he's got such ridiculous athletic tools. And, it's not just the athleticism, right? He wasn't the literally leading scorer in California state history just on the basis of his ability to get to the rim. I mean, he's incredibly proficient in the mid-range. Like, he gets to that 15-foot zone and he puts his butt into somebody, and there you can't push him back. He's built like he's been in the NBA for 10 years already. So, again, there's still ball watching stuff on the defensive end. Obviously, the 3-point number itself doesn't look all that pretty. I know that I am way irrationally high on him, so pretty much anybody else is going to be more reasonable about him, but there hasn't been anywhere near enough this year to shake my belief. But Paige, where are you at with Tounde Yessoufou at this point?
Yeah, I think when I was preparing for this episode, I was kind of wavering. Like, he's probably like a good early second round pick for me just because of the consistency issues. But I mean, the offensive intangibles that he has, like, you can't like not think that he kind of has like a star quality about him in a way, because I mean, he's 6'5", 250 pounds. I'm a Lions fan. He's built like David Montgomery, right? Like he's
built like a football player. He's not built like a basketball player.
Yeah. So I mean, he can, guard mismatches really well. He's, he kind of plays like this throwback style ball, kind of like, especially when he's in the post up, right? I mean, he really goes to work. He loves these tough fadeaway jumpers that he gets to, on a gather dribble, can kind of just outwork you in every sense on the post, right? And he's a guard. Like, you're not going to see that all the time. Like, that's his bread and butter. That's what he goes to a lot, right? And everyone knows that, like, from the Hoop Summit, right? And in high school too, like, that's what he does best, is in the mid-range. I mean, he shot nearly 50% off dribble twos. And he also, I don't know if you know this, Nick, you probably do, but I mean, he's the Baylor freshman program record holder in points with 605. He's also the Baylor freshman program record holder in field goals made, 226, and attempted 486. I mean, he definitely left his mark on Baylor. Obviously, Baylor didn't have, the best season overall, missed the March Madness tournament, was really hoping that, we could get to see two of our guys with Cam Carr and obviously Tounde Yessoufou in there. Unfortunately, we didn't. So we kind of have to, wait until he declares, right? And, the combine, obviously all that stuff. But I mean, he's going to be an outlier at the combine, right? I mean, his intangibles are absurd. He's a freak athlete, right? But in terms of, his shooting, when I was kind of looking at his shot, I do agree that he looks a lot more confident than last year. And he's actually actively looking to take those 3-point attempts. Like, he does have that shot creation to his game. His ball handling is a little loose at times in terms of creating his own shot on the perimeter, but he's taking them, right? His shot looks quicker. It looks the same, far more or less, but he also has like this right leg, like, kip to it a little bit that he does. And when he kind of like comes back down, and lands, his feet and knees kind of like go together a lot. So his balancing could use a little bit of work there, but I think, how he is in the mid-range, I could see some of that this year on the 3-point line. Obviously, the percent doesn't show, right? I mean, the last 5 games or so, he definitely struggled. But I mean, when you look at his Baylor roster, him and Cam Carr had to do, a lot of the work, right? And when you look at the NBA, like, he's not going to be asked to do that, like, right out the gate. I think he has star caliber potential with his offensive bag, but it's going to take time for that to, actively happen and teams to let him show that. I think it's kind of like a star in the making kind of development thing with him. And, fit depends on that too, who's really going to let this guy shine, because I've seen comps of, he's kind of like a raw Anthony Edwards, right? Just because of his build and, his mid-range type stuff, and obviously his rim finishing, right? I mean, he is just like a freight train to the rim, right? It takes so much just to knock him off his spots. But one thing too, like in transition, right? Like, when he grabs a rebound, I mean, he's so strong with the rebound. I mean, you're not in the stadium, but like when you're watching on film, I mean, you can hear him put a hand on the ball every single time. Like, he's so strong and powerful, but when he grabs those, defensive rebounds and he tries to, give and go, he has such a loose handle. It looks so awkward in transition, and he immediately tries to, get to his spot on the post, doesn't really set anything up, or, immediately tries to, get in his bag. He doesn't really let anything develop, which, that's going to get old pretty quick at the NBA level.
Yeah, I do want to get back to the transition stuff because there's one particular element that is genuinely my biggest concern with his game. But I mean, again, this is one of those things where I know that I'm biased in his favor, and so I have to try and take a more reasonable view on it. But, you mentioned the Baylor freshman scoring record. This is not a program without a history, right? Like, him breaking that record means more points than Keontae George, means more points than Vijay Edgecombe, right? Like, you don't even have to go back that far to see guys whose record he broke in that regard. And it's one of those things where, and again, I know that I'm biased in his favor, but it was very odd to me that, the sort of discussion around Tounde was, oh, this guy can't score. It's like, he's missing his threes. That's the only thing he's missing, right? Like the mid-range numbers, again, the Anthony Edwards comp has been beaten to death at this point with Tounde, but offensively, his game looks a lot more like DeMar DeRozan of just, oh, I'm going to get to my spot like 14 feet from the rim. There's absolutely nothing you could do. I'm going to put the shot up and you're just going to have to hope that I miss. And it bleeds very directly into the concerns with his handle that you were bringing up, in the sense of he's got a lot better control of the ball with his back to the basket than he does facing it. And on the one hand, it's incredible that he's as good in the post as he is. On the other hand, it's like, well, but do you want him taking that shot all the time at the NBA level? And that, again, takes me back to, hey, this guy put up 18 points a game in an offense where every single night, every opposing team knew, okay, so there are two guys we have to defend and everybody else just have fun, right? And so, and this has been the Baylor story consistently, right? That's part of what convinces me that I'm not crazy more than anything else is Jacoby Walter had these exact same problems. Vijay Edgecombe had these exact same problems. Keontae George had these exact same problems. And so it's like, if you're asked to carry an offense in the way that those guards have, and, 3-point shooting aside, in terms of raw volume, Tounde scored more than all of them, right? It's hard for me to see the scoring stuff as that much of a knock when he's breaking the kinds of records that you were mentioning him breaking.
For sure. I mean, you don't see a lot of freshmen score the way that Tounde does, honestly, especially when there's only two options on your team. You're trying to do a lot with a little, which in anything, right, it's so hard to do, especially when, you're 18 and 19 years old and playing, Power 5 or Power 4 basketball, right? And I think with him too, like, I'm not like the shot. Yeah, he's shot less than 30%, right? But he's going to the line, almost 4 times per game. He's shooting 75% there. He's nearly a 50% mid-range scorer. The athleticism is there. The intangibles are there. The only thing that really, really worries me the most is his playmaking, right? And his connected playmaking. I mean, if you want to go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just going to say, when I was, teasing earlier that the thing that worried me in transition that I wanted to circle back to, it's the passing, just generally. Like, if you're going to have the ball in your hands as much as the best version of Tounde Yessoufou will have the ball in his hands, you just need to be better as a passer. And it's one of those things where he's not scared as a passer. It's not, again, like a lot of his turnovers are live pass turnovers, right? It's not just, oh, he, back of the basket, someone stripped him, he wasn't paying all that much attention, ball going the other way, right? It's like he is trying to be a playmaker, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, honestly, right? In the sense of, it's definitely a better sign for his future development that he's not a selfish player, that he's willing to make those connective reads. But the fact that he tries those passes and they don't connect as much as he would like that's by far my biggest concern about his game is, can he do enough making plays for others in a way that isn't just him throwing the ball into the fifth row? Because there are some cool passes on his reel. There are some really ugly ones too.
Yeah, I mean, 54 assists to 64 turnovers, right? With the caliber of player that he is, isn't going to cut it, right, in the NBA. And for him too, I mean, it's his decision making too. And like, I'm a big believer in like, if a player, I mean, this is like a general statement, but like, if a player has high basketball IQ, they're not going to make the mistakes that Tounde makes, here and so often. Like, you're not going to sail them out of bounds a lot, or, not lead your man a lot. You're going to, thread the needle, and you're going to make the risk when you have to make a risk, not, oh, I can make this risk. And, if I turn it over and, they shoot a three or get a bucket, like, that's okay. Like, a lot of those have happened, I think, over this past year too, which like worries me a little bit in terms of his decision making. Cause like, if you're playing with a guy like Cam Carr, which is like who is a top 20 pick at this point, right? And you're not, setting him up, every single chance you get, or playing off each other, right? It's kind of an issue, right? Or kind of how to play with, these other caliber players that you are, especially on the offensive end, and the type of shooter that Cameron Carr is too.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, and again, I have this other number pulled up for the Baylor offense that I want to read off in a minute, which, is a bit more of a point in Tounde's favor. But yeah, I mean, when I was cutting up film for my Tounde article, I was like really trying to find like the Tounde Cam Carr connections. And it was almost always going the other way. It was almost always Cam hits Tounde, on his way to the rim, loud dunk. Cam hits Tounde, good post entry pass. Tounde turns the guy around, 15-foot mid range jumper, et cetera. Right. And so the fact that I was looking for it as much as I was and struggled to find it is
That's a bad sign.
really not a good sign. The flip side that I do want to bring up, Cam Carr had 638 points. Tounde, as you mentioned, 605. Guess how many other Baylor players had 500 points?
Probably like 2.
0. Guess how many other Baylor players had 400 points?
Probably 0.
0. The next highest scorer for Baylor scored 352 points last year. Like, when we say the offense was just the two of them, there were only 2 other players on Baylor who scored half as many points as the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And, honestly, that's the kind of thing that in my mind is like 70% a point in Tounde's favor of this is a Baylor tradition, and those guards always play better once they have better spacing at the NBA level, and there's reason to hope for that. There's the other 30%, which is, hey man, like, just hit Cam Carr on every pass and don't bother passing to the other guys. And like the fact that, again, it's one of those things where if the defense is keyed in on you and one other guy, almost by definition, there's going to be a passing lane open, right? Even if you're not doubled, right? You're going to be soft doubled, or, they're cheating over to Cam in the corner, right? It's like, there's going to be a play to make there. And the fact that he didn't more often than not is, again, that is by far my biggest concern with the Tounde translation, is can he figure out enough as a playmaker for others? The handle points are fair. I don't disagree by any stretch of the imagination, but given how good he is at getting to his spots in the mid-range, that's less of a concern for me than just, again, it's like a lot of the transition stuff with Tounde was like, this should be an easy basket. And instead it's a sailed pass. And it's like, if you're not finishing the play yourself, it's probably not going to be finished. And that says more about his teammates than it did about him in general. But in terms of looking at the NBA translation, like, unless you're Joel Embiid, and just rookie year Joel Embiid, because he improved dramatically as a passer very, very quickly. But unless you're like rookie year Joel Embiid, you're not going to get the ball dumped to you in the post if you're turning it over and not making passes. And Tounde, at least, again, in terms of the on-ball turnovers, he really doesn't cough it up that much. Like, he has pretty good ball security with himself, but, there are 4 other players on the court, and as much as I love everything else about Tounde's game, if he can't hit those passes, the court is going to be very narrow for him, and things are going to be a lot more sped up than you would like to see.
Yeah, and I think, when he is in the NBA, right, like, your teammates are not going to want to, like, play with you if you're not going to actively, look for them or, try to set them up when, you're playing with all-star caliber players, right, that, obviously they're going to be like the primary scorers, and, Tounde's kind of going to come in and, provide valuable minutes. to start off with, right? I think just because he does have such a deep offensive bag and is such a master in the mid-range, right? And his athleticism, like I do see him kind of being that, at least a 2 option in the NBA if he, if the playmaking and the decision making clicks a little bit more for me. But I think, that's a big thing too. I mean, it's so easy to be like, oh, if he does X, Y, and Z. I mean, that's for any player, right? But like the decision making is like something that you either have it or you don't, right? So I think that's kind of where I'm at in terms of that sense with him. But like, I don't have questions with his offensive game, really. I mean, if you watch the tape, I mean, so many times you're like, how does someone with his, intangibles move like that? Like just how he moves and, his quickness, his speed, his athleticism, and how he creates for himself. Right. And it's kind of like that old school ball, like I was mentioning, especially on the post and in the mid range. But I mean, it works. Right. Yeah. So, and I think him, he can attack mismatches. I mean, we saw this year, obviously against BYU, he had his best game, 36 points, was I think 7 for, where is it at? 5 for 8 from the 3-point line, right? And he was also guarding AJ DeBansa to that game, which is kind of like, I don't know, like I wouldn't put him on the team's best players, like if I can't, but like he's such a great, mismatch for them because he's a big body, he has athleticism, right? And he is very capable of keeping, players in front of them, right? I mean, he was also on Chris Sinak against Houston, but I mean, I don't feel as strongly as like putting him on like the point of attack, right? Against like a small, shiftier guard that's, really, their primary scorer, right? That's where I get a little bit nervous. But I mean, he's a very, he's a guy that you can plug and play with on a defensive end in terms of switches, right? I mean, he's going to hold his own and you're not going to worry about that. So.
For sure. I mean, yeah, he's not a point of attack guy. He's not a rim protector, but 2 through 4, I'm quite comfortable. And especially just given the heft that he has, it's like even guys who have 5-6 inches on him aren't going to be able to bully him. It's like, I think constantly of, and I've almost forgotten who the players were because it was so many of them, but the days of younger Marcus Smart when 7-footers would try and post him up and they just couldn't go anywhere because he had that kind of tree trunk lower body, and Tounde has that too. I do want to sort of dial back in on the defense quickly before we wrap up, but I do just want to go back to the playmaking to say one last thing before we close out, which is it's both a good thing and a bad thing that his playmaking issues are not because he's a black hole, right? Like he's not unwilling to pass. And so, if he was unwilling to pass, then there's a lot less reason in my mind to be optimistic because, not to put too fine a point on it, but Cam Thomas never learned how to want to pass, right? Whereas Tounde is at least willing to make those plays in a way that is encouraging for his development. Again, as I said earlier, the flip side of that is the fact that he's willing to but not able to it's a concern for sure. But again, just sort of closing out with the defensive stuff, I think the thing that stood out to me with the defense more than anything else is just the improvement from the high school film in terms of, and again, it's like he was literally the state record holder for pretty big state here in California, right? And so him not giving full effort on the defensive end, that was really the biggest thing I was looking for in his profile at Baylor was how willing are you going to be to defend? And, he still gets he still gets caught ball watching. Sometimes, as you mentioned, he's not sort of the first choice I would have as a point of attack guy. But a lot of these sort of buy-in work ethic kind of stuff that can be observed more from afar rather than up close, like I got the chance to do at Hoop Summit, a lot of that was pointing in positive directions of, it's not just that he got a ton of steals because he was gambling every time. Now he's just making good reads and getting those steals. So I'm very encouraged by the positive trend of his defense. And, even though the passing stuff really does concern me, I'm less worried about the 3-point shooting than I would be for most players like that, in no small part because, as you mentioned, he looks a lot more confident with it.
For sure. And he just seems like he's a relentless player, right? He's willing to put in the work. He's willing to, take on roles that maybe he didn't see himself in, or kind of, carry a lot more load that, I think coming to Baylor, obviously had to do, right? That I don't think he's going to have to do right away in the NBA. So he has that to his back. He was in a, uncomfortable-ish situation, right? With only about Cameron Cardelina, and, he still averaged 18 points per game, right? And he kind of, he held up his end of the bargain, 6 rebounds too. And he's just this relentless, 6'5", 250-pound guard that will make you pay in the mid-range and at the rim. And he can also provide value on the defensive end too. I mean, he does have that two-way upside to him as well. So it's just going to matter too. Cause if he was 6'7", I don't think we'd be, nitpicky as much with his defense, right? But he's not. So it's kind of hard to, when you're, with his archetype and you're kind of, this mid-range facade, right? It's kind of hard to put you into a mold of, if you're not really a playmaker, right, at this range, and you're more comfortable as a two-way level scorer guy, how do we really fit you into, our scheme and role, and have a role for you to, excel at?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to see the fit for Isaiah Evans if we're just doing the guys we covered today.
For sure, yeah.
All right, shall we move on to quick hits and wrap this one up?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so as mentioned earlier, we are recording this on Tuesday afternoon / Tuesday evening, which means the college basketball season is officially over. Less than 24 hours ago, the Michigan Wolverines closed out the UConn Huskies in a game that got a lot closer at the end than I think most people were anticipating, but ended up going down to the free throw game. But Paige, you were not, unlike me, you were not on your couch watching this game. So yeah, what was your experience like being sort of in the building?
So most people know that I went to Michigan State. I'm a Michigan State fan. Like, I would never put Michigan, as a hat or shirt on me, right? But when you're that close to, a team in your state that you haven't really seen win at this level in a very long time in any sport, right? I'm talking about, Lions, Pistons, whatever. Like, you want to go to a place where it's going to be kind of like a once in a while thing, right? So I ended up going to the Chrysler Center at their watch party for the national championship game, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, the atmosphere was buzzing. I mean, how would you react if your team or school won the national championship for the first time in 37 years, right? So and Michigan had one of the best teams in college basketball ever, right? I mean, there's no denying that, right? I mean, there's a lot of talk of, their starting five is transfers. It doesn't matter, right? Because of how they were able to, they went from 8-24 to, only losing 2 games this year and national champions. Like, that's in any program, like, that's incredible. So we have to give them their flowers, even though some people, want to disagree about the transfer thing. Like, let's give credit where credit is due, right? And the turnaround that Dusty May has done, probably the best hire that Michigan, has had after, all the things that's happened, at the university. But it was a super awesome time. Got back at 2 a.m. But I mean, that's what you got to do, because I mean, as a basketball fan in general, like, you have to do those things, right? Obviously, I wish that I was at the Breslin Center and watching my Spartans, but hopefully in the next couple of years or so. But I mean, yeah, it was awesome.
So obviously not you specifically, but we do have a couple of Michigan fans in the No Ceilings crew, and I didn't want to say anything throughout the course of the process, for multiple reasons, but that team really did feel kind of inevitable to me in a way that was like, maybe if they end up facing off against a team, well, it was like, I thought maybe Duke might have a chance, but I also thought maybe Arizona might have a chance, and that game was over pretty fast. And, again, it's just one of those things where, yeah, you can sort of, bring up transfer portal, whatever you want to discuss. You can also, say by the same token, like, hey, like, maybe one of the Hall of Fame big men that went to UCLA for like a decade straight, maybe they go to another school if, rather than like, the ridiculous string of Lou Alcindor to Bill Walton to just on and on. It's like those these things come and go in waves. And so thinking about it only in terms of, oh, they managed to build this team through the transfer portal, the opposite perspective of that is, oh, these guys never played together until this year. And it was still so obvious that they made it work anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they were just dominant from start to finish. Like, even when I saw them on Pro Day, I'm like, they have like a real chance to win a national championship. That was in October, right? I think a lot of us were kind of like, yeah, they have it, but like, who really knows? Like, it could go like Arizona, Florida, Duke, right? But I mean, the proof is in the pudding all year long for the Wolverines. And Mara really grew on me over the past season. Elliot Cadeau, this was a good year for, like, I think he needed this. I mean, he won most outstanding player in the national championship game. He was, the guy that, Michigan kind of needed to set the table. I mean, Dusty May had so many good things to say about him. I mean, he had a story about, he called Sean May and was like, if Sean May, was 17 or 18 years old, would you want to play with Elliot Cadeau? And he's like, explicit yes. So like that kind of sold, Dusty May and Elliot Cadeau. But I think this was like his revenge year, proved a lot of people wrong in that sense. And, now he's a national champion. And obviously Yaxel, Merez Johnson Jr. I mean, you have 3 first-round picks right there. So
yeah, a lot, again, just an absurd amount of talent, but also the way that it came together so quickly for all of them. It was like, oh, like we have had our doubts about Ademar in the past. I don't think we've been particularly shy about it either. Yeah. But, again, it was one of those things where, oh, it never clicked for him at UCLA. And then all of a sudden it did. And Yax, obviously, he didn't have anything to prove in terms of, hey, can I, make it work with people? It's like, hey, do I look like the same player going from UAB to Michigan? It's like, well, I'm just also going to add in a lot more 3-point shooting because, hey, that's what I need to prove at the NBA level. And again, it's just for all the potential knocks that you have against that team and, Dusty May as the head coach, it all came together almost immediately and pretty much stayed that way all year long. Like the 2-week Yaxel shooting slump aside, they were this team all year.
Yeah. And Mara had some of the craziest finishes I've ever seen a 7'3" guy make throughout this tournament. And obviously his playmaking is absurd too. I mean, the talent that guy has can't be, understated, especially because with me and you, I think we kind of let him grow on us a lot more than some other people. So, I mean, the next big board mock draft will be interesting to see, where we have him. But, and then besides that, obviously UConn, tremendous run. I mean, they almost had their 3rd national title in 4 years, which is crazy. And obviously Braylon Mullins, Shine, Alex Caravan, right? And obviously Terrace Reed. Really feel bad for Terrace Reed. I mean, I saw this stat. I don't mean to laugh, but it's just like, so like, how is this even like possible? I mean, so his first 2 years, obviously with Michigan, and then transferred to UConn and with UConn, and he missed out on, 2 UConn titles. Obviously Florida won it and then Michigan won it. So he didn't have a chance to win a national championship, but he was at both schools during the same time period, which is crazy.
On the other hand, on the flip side, if you're an NBA team mired, in the doldrums, just draft Terrace Reed and you'll make a finals run. You'll lose the finals, but you'll make them. Yeah. The Kings pick up Terrace Reed and they make it to the NBA finals and get housed.
There you
go.
Happy with that. That's all they need.
Perfect. All right. Anything else before we wrap up today's episode?
No, all good.
All right. So that will do it for us. She is Paige Otto. You can find her on social media at PaigeOtto_. You can find me on social media at NBA Johnson. You can check out the podcast on whatever podcast player you might be using. 5 stars and a review, always much appreciated on our end. Or if you want to check out the video, you can find us on YouTube, No Ceilings NBA, No Ceilings TV. If you've been enjoying the show, again, please leave ratings and or reviews wherever you might be catching the show. And if you have any feedback regarding the deep dive specific portion of the show, feel free to reach out to us via the aforementioned social media channels, or you can shoot me an email, nickaj.nba@gmail.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.